Hello and welcome to today's lecture. Today's lecture is one of our big ones. It's going to be one of the main topics we focus on throughout this semester and one of the most important pieces to our program. Believe it or not, color is something you can get a PhD in, and it is very unique to individuals and very unique to different industries and what's required. So, what color means to the print industry and how to accurately present color to a client or customer is what we'll be focusing on today. It's a very common occurrence that colors that I see, colors that appeal to me, are not necessarily the same that are to my client, but I have to try and find a way to translate that when computer monitors are calibrated differently, phone screens portray colors very different than printing them, and there's all these variations to color that cause it to be an ongoing issue and why it's so important to us in the print industry. In this lecture, you will learn about color modes, which mode to use and why, color channels, process color, spot colors, screen builds, and Pantone matching system. Color modes in Photoshop. So when we create a Photoshop image or we're editing one and you know it's going to print, you must change the color mode to CMYK. And this is why. Choose a color mode based on how you want your final image portrayed. So CMYK, grayscale, and duotones are all very important to the print industry. However, RGB, bitmap, index, and lab are what are used in our web design world. Defining color modes. CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The K is not so much from black, but it is a key color, so just about anything you print will include the color black. So that's why they use the letter K. I find it easier to remember if you just use the K in the word black. CMYK is also known as process color. CMYK is limited to only producing 1 million color variations. CMYK, these colors were selected because they give the closest full tonal range to a photograph when printed. So they're the 4 colors that they found were closest to representing what your eye sees when you take a picture or what the camera can see. CMYK does the best job while only staying within 4 colors. Also, the idea is that when you lay cyan, magenta, and yellow over top of each other, they can create black. So this kind of helps give them the best tonal range. However, CMYK cannot recreate bright and vibrant colors like neons or lime green. So have you ever tried to print lime green off of your home printer? It tends to kind of come out as a muddy color. It's almost like an olive or it's dark. It's definitely not what you were looking for. RGB. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. This mode assigns a brightness value to each pixel. Values range from 0 to 255 for each color. RGB can produce up to 16 million colors. Used for digital output, monitors, TVs, and any form of light screens. So that's your phone, your tablet, anything else that uses light to produce color. Not practical for process printing applications because the color starts off so dark. So red, green, and blue, if you think about those 3 colors as paint, they're already dark. As soon as you start layering them on top of each other, you're only going to end up with a darker image. Whereas CMYK tend to be much brighter colors, therefore once you kind of layer them, it takes a while for them to get to that dark level. So the other 2 color modes that we use in print are duotone and grayscale. Not used overly often anymore, but still important to know. Duotones are grayscale-like images printed in 2 colors. Instead of shades of gray, colors are used to reproduce tints. 1 plate per color, once again using halftone dots to create various shades. usually a cheaper option to full CMYK printing. So this can be that maybe you have two brand colors, or maybe it's just going to be easier. You've kind of seen this in newspapers before where they'll use like a blue and black ink, and you can tell what the image is. It's not fully color accurate, but it at least saves money and allows you to still portray what you're looking to do. Grayscale. When you print in grayscale, you get an image that contains variations of gray tones between black and white. Halftones allow you to use only one ink color to create various shades of color. So grayscale, also known as a black and white print, you're only printing with black ink because your paper is already white. So you're using that illusion to create tonal ranges within gray. So here is my favorite thing to show for the color spectrum and kind of getting the best idea of how color works. So if that full circle is all the colors in the world, within the yellow triangle is everything that can be visually seen with RGB. So when your phone monitor can produce those lime greens, it can produce the bright neon blues and pinks and yellows. However, the poor blue triangle is our CMYK gamut. So much lighter tones, a lot less vibrant, and you can see that each point of that triangle are the extremes. So it's your cyan, yellow, and magenta. Color terminology. When designing documents and making references to specific colors, you must be clear on the following terms: process color, CMYK, press units, spot colors, green builds, Pantone matching system, Pantone process, and then other models like Toyo, True Match, and Focal Tone. Process color. The standard set of colored inks used for full color reproduction in almost every printer. Certain percentages of CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black inks are combined on the page to create any color within their gamut. These four colors were discovered to create a good tonal range for full color images by creating different screens. The most common method for blending these process inks is to print small dots of color called halftone dots. So you know when you go to the DMV or you've seen these quizzes online or even as a kid, and you'll have like a whole bunch of pink and red dots, and on the inside there's green dots that create a letter or a number. And somebody usually asks you, what can you read? So these are kind of like the best example of what you'd see in your day-to-day lives to kind of represent what halftone dots mean. So halftone dots. These dots are distributed in evenly spaced rows. Each color row of dots are on different angles. These dots are also known as DPI, dots per inch. The number of dots across in each inch of print. The DPI indicates the resolution of the image. So most people have heard of pixels per inch, PPI. So when you set up your image for print, I believe you've been told that 300 pixels per inch is ideal for printing a photo. So you may have discussed in Aaron's class. Well, on your computer monitor, to save that graphics card and to save memory and resolution, your images on a computer only have to be 72 pixels per inch. So much different than 300. So if you ever tried to take that picture off Google and you were to put it in your presentation, PowerPoint, and you stretch it out and it becomes all pixelated and blurry, that's because it was designed for a much smaller viewing area. Pixels per inch can be directly translated to dots per inch. So if you have a 300 pixels per inch image on your computer screen, that physically means that it is going to print 300 dots per linear inch. So 300 dots across by 300 dots down for that entire inch. So the idea of the dots is if you want a darker area, you print a bigger dot, and if you want a lighter area, you print a smaller dot. So if you look on the face we have here, in the forehead, we have much smaller dots, creating more white space to show through, creating this to be a lighter gray. Whereas the black areas along the hairlines and the eyes and the lips, they have bigger dots filling in the space, removing any kind of white that you can see, creating a darker tonal range. So that's essentially how it works. So for CMYK, you would print or produce 4 different plates of these dots, and they don't directly lay on top of each other. They kind of lay off to the side of each other, creating an optical illusion to produce greens and oranges and all the other various colors that you would see in a normal image. Press units. Today, the use of multicolor printing is extremely common as technology adapts to make printing more efficient. A multicolor press has distinct sections called units. Each unit is only used for one color per job. So this printing press in the image here is actually quite small in the grand scheme of printing presses. Sometimes you can have units the size of cars or trucks or even small homes only printing one color. So every color you want in your job requires another unit. So if you think of a Coca-Cola ad, they're going to have their CMYK to produce the image. So you think of an ad, they had one where they have people dancing while holding a Coca-Cola bottle. So to produce the picture of the person dancing, you would need CMYK to produce that image. And then for them, because they have the money and it's important for their branding, they would need a 5th unit with their Pantone red to create that image. So that now becomes a 5-color job. So depending on where you are in the market, how much money you have in your marketing or what you want to do will determine how many colors and how you're going to produce your product. So each unit requires its own printing plate. This is where printing presses can become expensive, as it is one color per plate. So process color is 4 plates. Each additional Pantone color is an additional plate. So here's where I show you the optical illusion of print. So you can see the little rectangle on the main image, and it has blue sky, and then it has this brown sculpture next to it. So within that blue box, you're looking at the dots that are on the right. So even though the sky is fully blue, you can see small dots of magenta and yellow to kind of help make the sky look warmer. So magenta and yellow are much warmer colors, so instead of the blue being just a stark blue and white, but there's bigger blue dots, so more blue will still show through. Now for the brown on the side, you kind of have equal sized dots being scattered. However, the yellow tends to be a little bit more isolated than the pink, and the blue kind of hides in the background. This is showing you that it's going to be a warmer brown color. So if you take any book, any piece of print that you find, if you have a magnifying glass and you can look up really close, you can actually see that there is a dot pattern associated to the print. Spot colors. This term refers to special inks. Other than the common CMYK process color, for example, branding colors. Spot colors require their own press unit and plate. Can you guess what some of these brands are? So you can see NSCC, the official Pantone color is 295C. So that's the official brand color. So all of these brands belong to a company, and usually you can Google online just what you want. So in the bottom left, you can see there's kind of this flag looking color. So these are IKEA's colors. So I Googled IKEA's branding colors, and this shows up. So if I were to produce an ad for them, they would provide me their branding guide if I was being directly contracted by them, but you can see it's just as easy as looking up their colors. And this means anywhere in the world, think of how many IKEAs there are, The flyers for IKEA aren't going to be printed in the same place all the time, so being in different places throughout the world allows, with the Pantone colors, allows us to ensure that it's the same color and the same branding. In the middle, we have the red, blue, yellow, and green. These are Google's Pantone colors, and they even have an uncoded and a coded version. You can see the C and the U. They give you a process ink color. Hex and RGB for web designers would be more important for those colors. And lastly, on the right hand side, we have the John Deere Pantone colors. So once again, these are all unique and can also be very hard to recreate within CMYK. There are 3 reasons why designers or customers might use a spot color. The job may be printed on a 1 or 2 color press. It is extremely important for brand identity to keep consistent color between different print runs and printers because the color of the client wants is beyond the color spectrum of CMYK. So maybe your branding requires a very vibrant orange. Well, you can't produce that within CMYK. Therefore, it is easier to buy an extra thing of paint, so you can buy the paint and the ink directly from Pantone. They even have fabrics that go within the colors to make sure that all of your branding stays consistent across the board. Spot colors in Pantone. Spot color inks must be purchased specifically for that job and/or customer needs. Pantone is the most popular and globally recognized color matching system. Pantone is often referred to as a PMS color, PMS standing for Pantone Matching System. PMS was the first attempt to standardize color developed in the US in 1963. So anybody who works within any type of industry, it can be interior design, it can be fabric dyeing, it can be web design, or it can be print. All tend to rely on Pantone colors to ensure a streamline of branding across the board. PMS. The biggest attraction to Pantone color is how many more color options are available outside of the CMYK color gamut and/or spectrum. However, with such a cost increase to pick a Pantone color or having to purchase another printing plate, Pantone created a swatch book with the closest process color comparison. So normally in our classroom, I would have these Pantone books and I would send them around the class for you to kind of see the variations. So some of you may be familiar with, but Pantone has it's just like a swatch book that you can pick up at your hardware store with paint swatches, and essentially it has all of Pantone's options. So you can use this book when I'm running my printing press at work. I use the book and I can match it closest to the color that I'm printing and ensuring I'm making it color accurate. However, because of the cost, Pantone has a book that on the left-hand side, it is their Pantone colors, and on the right side, it has the closest representation they can produce with CMYK. Some colors are dead on, but as we mentioned a couple times, as you get to the brighter colors, they tend to be a little bit more duller, not as vibrant on the CMYK side. So here's our updated color spectrum. So once again, we have our full visible color gamut. We have our RGB color gamut within that yellow triangle. Now we've added our Pantone color gamut within the red blob. And this kind of shows you get to the brighter greens, brighter reds, more vibrant purples and blues, and then you still have your much smaller CMYK color gamut. Does your printed color change depending on if the paper is coated or uncoated? The answer is most definitely. It is important to remember that the coating on your paper or substrate will change how the color is perceived. So coated and uncoated. Coated tends to be your glossy, more photo quality paper. Uncoated is going to be your duller cardstock. The biggest reason for this is coated paper, the ink stands on top. If you've ever tried to print a photo off from your home printer that prints color or prints photo images and you stick your thumb in it and all of a sudden it's smudged, it's because the ink is sitting on top and therefore it needs a chance to dry. Uncoated tends to be more of your matte, duller, more artisanal paper, which the ink can physically absorb into the paper, creating less vibrant colors, but you also don't have to deal with sticking your thumb in the photo and having a muddy image. Screen builds. This term refers to the process of creating a new color by combining specific amounts of CMYK, magenta, yellow, and black. So screen builds goes back to our image of the dots. So if you have a screen with bigger dots or a full 100% magenta dot, and then you add a smaller yellow dot, you're going to have a warmer pink color, not necessarily as bright, but still warm. You can have 100% cyan and then 35 magenta, so you're going to have kind of a, it's not, because of the 100% cyan, it's still blue, but it's towards that purple range as opposed to being full blue. So those are our screen builds. How to create a swatch in InDesign. So this is something we will actually be using today for our assignment, and it's in our tutorial video. So when you create a swatch, you will make a rectangle. We go to the fill on the right hand side, and then we'll create a new color swatch with a Pantone. Dot percentages. Printing plates can handle very small or large dot percentages. Dot percentage too low results in no ink in that area, as in white space. Dot percentage too high results in too much ink in one area, meaning that color will bleed into wrong areas, causing a muddy image. So muddy is actually a technical term that you just have too much ink in one spot. So think of your preschool days of painting on a page and you just started mixing all your colors and all of a sudden you ended up with these brown spots on your page that you didn't intend to, but you added too much paint. If you add too much ink, it's going to bleed, creates a muddy image. And that's it. We'll head back to our chat for you to have any questions for today's lecture.